It's another week in the For Your Reference household, and it is another year around the podcast on OT.
Tell the simps at the back.
Simps are welcome in the For Your Reference household for 4 years, OT.
Yeah, wild, isn't it?
What exciting times, and very embarrassingly, I think you can trace all of the simps through our reference degustations. I would say that I am definitely a simp for our first reference degustation, Hayao Miyazaki. We've also covered Taika Waititi as well as Quentin Jerome Tarantino. And this year, it's going to get nasty. It's going to get questionable, but we've got each other, friends and lovers. Takashi Miike, are you ready, OT?
I am ready.
We've watched Audition, and I think that's as far as we have dabbled into
That's as deep as we've gone.
I would say I'm very excited. Please check in with us for our mental check-ins for the rest of the films. Let's get on with the show. Konnichiwa, friends and lovers. Welcome back to the For Your Reference podcast. You got your host, Katie.
And OT.
Welcome to the sad cult of simps, dinosaurs, and taxi doilies.
Oof.
Press record on the self-tape of Manufactured Desire with Audition this week.
Woohoo!
Woo-hoo-hoo. Yee. Wow. I also feel like this might be the milder of the selections we have for this degustation, OT.
I think you're right.
How are you feeling?
I'm excited. I know we'll get into first impressions, but I'm just excited to delve into this. I think this is the second one I've been really excited for, apart from Miyazaki when we did it.
Okay.
So I'm
Weeaboo territory.
Yeah, I'm excited to see where we head with this.
Okay, well, let's get into general stats and information so we can ride it and it off.
Yeah.
We need to use that on the soundboard, OT.
Oh, for sure.
Director, love and lauded all around the world, Takashi Miike. In regards to writing, it's based on the novel by Ryu Murakami. We have screenplay by Daisuke Tengen in regards to when it was released. And very interestingly, he is a man of mystique, and I'm slowly getting to understand and not understand Takashi Miike because he is notoriously known for making lots of films. And I think Audition is the longest stint of filming.
Wow.
And even that was only a few weeks.
Wow, he is like 75 plus.
Yeah, two of the films we have, I think it might even be over 100, but two of the films he has are released in the same year. But Audition was released in October of 1999 in the Vancouver International Film Festival. In regards to actors, we have Ryu Ishibashi, Eihi Shina, as well as Tetsu Sawaki. Oh, wow. So I guess just to give a general sort of benchmark for the calling sheet, if you're nasty, we have watched Audition and we knew we were going to rewatch it as a part of the other films as well. So it'll be interesting to see how it all stacks up. But how do you feel? How do you feel now watching it? We've already mentioned spoilers, so feel free to go all the way with it. It's interesting because Takashi also talks about him not liking bloody horrors.
Has he seen his movies?
Could you be any more Friends reference? So how did you feel re-watching Audition, or even how you felt initially to now?
So I think initially it blew my mind. I don't know. I felt like I was more disturbed by it compared to now having rewatched it, and I felt, okay, I think the horror, the shock effect of it wore off because I knew what to expect. And it made me now sit back and enjoy it a bit more for what it is. If that makes sense. In as much as you can do that with those two disgusting men. But
I like how you just had to get that out there just so people are clear on your stance.
Yeah. Fact. Because I think initially my understanding, because we had a lot of cutbacks, and fragmented segments of memories or how Ioma sort of thought the
Okay, we do have a theme on that.
Yeah,
we
like
have a theme
I was bouncing my head off. And I think watching it the second time, I got a bit more clarity. I still had questions that I wanted to find out more on, but at least it got me closer to the edge.
Okay.
What about you?
I agree with you. I was very impressed by Audition when I first watched it. Obviously the shock horror and, you know, the notes that it was supposed to be hitting definitely hit the first time. But you're right. Watching it again this time, I think if we can all be generous, we can talk about globally the consumability of morose, morbid sort of shit, whether it's in fiction or whether it's in real life, has made us perhaps desensitized to the, you know, the magic of filmmaking and that sort of thing. Or we're just fucking gross. I don't know which one it is. Friends and lovers, feel free to chime in wherever you feel.
Column A, column B stuff, man.
Yeah. So in that sense, I was a bit worried because, you know, the whole premise of this film is essentially to use it as a personal sort of dating service, which is fucking gross, right? But it didn't necessarily seep into my inner core. And maybe it's because I already had that experience the first time watching it. I'm not sure, but you're right. I don't think it's to take away from Audition the film, but I think it is to be said, if I may be Greg from Succession, that the intensity wasn't necessarily at the high sort of stakes that we felt watching it for the first time, for example.
Yeah, because I think a lot of the scenes and the shots were more for the shock value. And I think once you've experienced it fast and then you know what to expect, then you can now focus more on what's being said and what's being shown rather than, oh, fucking hell, what is he doing?
Yeah.
You know, because there was initially a lot of gasping moments. I remember I gasped a lot of the first time watching it. I was like, wait, what? I couldn't imagine what I was watching.
Yeah.
And
don't worry, I've got the audition scene for us to talk about.
Nice.
So shout outs to our patrons that were courageous enough to join us in some common and recurring themes. Friends and lovers, we are embarking on this journey really right now. So we're not sure whether we would recommend you watch and listen along with us, but we welcome you on this journey.
100%.
Are you ready to get into some themes?
Let's do it.
I just want to talk very generally about the cinematography in this film. Obviously, we can also talk about soundtrack and score as well, which I do want to touch on a little bit. But I kind of want to talk about the visuals in this film because, again, we have watched this film before. I didn't remember the plot. I didn't remember a lot about this film, but there were scenes that were like apparently seared into my brain and it's just been sitting there.
Yeah, I'm with you. There are bits where I was sort of not even fully remembering certain plot points in the movie, but once you see a shot, it all comes just rushing back.
Yeah.
And I think that's a takeaway for how he did his cinematography and how it created that lasting effect.
Yeah.
You know, I expect in X number of years and if we rewatch this again, it'll be the same thing.
Yeah.
Where we can see a shot and we can remember something that happened and try and contrast how we felt about it then and now.
I would also say that I was aware of the lingering sort of piano score that was happening throughout the film. And I feel like a little bit of that is lost. Like watching recent films, like even the films that came out in 2022, like it's cool to have silence in scenes, but I really felt like the piano, especially in the haunting moments where Asami and Ayoma would be like having dinner, for example, and it really helped to like build the tension. I really appreciated how, you know, that would weave with the visuals as well in the film.
Yeah, but it feels like for the time though, at least to me, I do understand. I'm a firm believer in silence can elevate a scene to max level sometimes.
Yeah.
And a score can also elevate it, you know.
I'm not saying there weren't quiet moments in this film, but I'm just saying it helped to like elevate.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
The emotion in the scene. Something else, just like general sort of, discussion points across Takashi Miike's films. Commentary on Japan / the world. So I don't know how much this is going to follow us in the films that we're going to be covering, but I thought it was quite interesting. There were quite a few lines about Japan in particular, but I also put world because we might also see that in other films as well. That wasn't something I was expecting. It's definitely not something I necessarily remember the first time watching. We see Oyama and Yoshikawa looking at footage. I personally think it was a crowd for an idol show, but they didn't really specify what it was. But you could see adults having a good time and cheering and that sort of thing. And Yoshikawa talks about how, it's a sad cult. No one's really happy in Japan. It wasn't a general sort of comment of adults being unhappy. It was a very specific comment about Japan. And there's quite a few lines throughout the film that kind of hint to the state of Japan and maybe the sort of dissonance, but just generally the sort of commentary.
Yeah, even the loneliness. And I think that's one of the things that they covered, they talked about how a lot of people are lonely. And that's one of the things that we tend to see a lot of documentaries about as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I think how it's sort of ingrained in this sort of paints the picture. And I think it also speaks to Oyama as a character, as a protagonist in this, how he saw the world and how he experienced it.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. And I guess while we're here, and who knew, friends and lovers, who knew your friends and lovers at the For Your Reference podcast will be able to tie in Takashi Miike as well as Michaela Cole? Because in I May Destroy You, one of the compelling sort of lingering themes in the background was about general sort of loneliness, right? And, even in Japan, there's a term for it called hikikomori, where, socially exclusion and talking about the growing population of those that feel alone and might not necessarily have any sort of social ties and that sort of thing. And this was, in the 90s as well. So definitely a theme that needed to be addressed. But again, it was weaved, if you'll pardon the pun, so effortlessly throughout this film.
Oh, 100%.
I think even the son, Shigehiko, also talked about loneliness as well.
Yeah, it's a running occurrence within the movie. And we get to see how Oyama at least tries to deal with it.
Mm-hmm.
And from his point of view, which is a bit skewed, but I know we'll get to it.
Yeah. Well, there was also it was literally the first scene at the start of the film saying, I rather girls than big imaginary fishes. I don't think that was specific to Japan, but I really enjoyed that. And I'm also looking forward to the films that we're going to be covering just to see if there's any sort of commentary in general.
Me too.
The next theme that I have, and we've already talked about spoilers, is what is real and what is not in the Miike world.
Okay, I see where you're going with this. From my perspective watching this movie, I thought Oyama perceived his interactions with Asami in a certain way.
Okay.
Up until his ideal of the perfect woman that he imagined, when that veneer sort of faded, that's when he's like, oh, now I started to remember how Asami told me how she wasn't this perfect, beautiful flower untainted by the world, who has all this resilience of conquering, not being able to dance anymore.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, this dude needs to calm down for a bit, And
bro, he had to take the day off because he couldn't call her. That's the level of simp. You'll see ancient hieroglyphics of him.
Yeah, the simp game was from way back. But it's interesting, right? Because I don't know your interpretation with this, whether it's real or not. I think he just saw it as, I'm the good guy in this. He didn't see himself as having archaic views. And up to the point, he put Asami on a pedestal until everything started crashing down and him seeing that, oh, Asami isn't this untainted flower in the garden.
Okay, we need to nip that in the bud, if you'll pardon the pun. right now. We absolutely need to nip it. So there's quite a lot I want to unpack in regards to what you just said. But the first sort of initial, sort of thread that I want to pull on right now is you laugh and you make a joke at simp level, but he literally was a simp. Once he read the essay, there was nothing. There was nada. There was zero anyone, including Yoshikawa, could do. Like, he was already fixated on her. He was infatuated with her. There was nothing that anyone could do to keep him from, building this sort of, like you said, this
idealistic model of what Asami is.
Exactly. There was nothing. There was nothing that he could be told. Even, I think it was late at night, he got that call saying, that her boss didn't work at Ace Records for ages and no one knows and no one can be able to verify. That was even before Yoshikawa even said anything, right? Just as a, hey, bro, heads up,
Yeah.
So at that point, I don't think there's anything else that he could have said. So that goes to the next part that I want to talk. Or is there anything you wanted to say in regards to that?
No.
I think we agree. I think as King Simp, you identify real, recognize real, hey?
Yeah, simp. Yeah, simp game is strong.
So the next thread that I wanted to pull on is, I think we can both agree that up until there was a turning point in the film, the portrayal of the relationship was from Oyama's perspective, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So now we kind of made a fork in the road. What we were presented was Asami being this perfect, untainted flower. But can we also acknowledge friends and lovers? Yes, she couldn't do ballet and it kind of ruined her career and her prospects and everything she put her energy into. But, Oyama kept saying, oh, you're so young to be, even in the audition scene, he didn't even ask a question. He was like, oh, you're so amazing. You're so great. Splooshy under the table, right? The way that people build resilience in this world is from unfucking fortunability, right?
Yeah.
It's going through hard shit in life. How do you think she gets so much wisdom like that? It's not just because she couldn't be a ballet dancer. But I guess that goes back to the first point of it didn't matter. Even if Asami was saying it right to his face, he was still going to build her up as this, untainted angel.
So to add to your fork on the road is only after he had slept with her,
hey,
did things start unraveling.
Can we talk about it? Bruh.
Right?
I sullied you, but you're the one without value. Fuck off.
From his perspective of him still being the so-called good guy, he goes through this process of trying to find Asami. He does everything. He goes to this old school studio where she used to train. He goes to the Stonefish bar. And all this.
I'm getting distracted. That tongue on the floor is going to distract me forever.
Yeah, it stays with you, doesn't it?
Tongue wagging on the floor. Lick it up for me, for me, for me.
Bruno Mars clearly missed the beat right there.
Tongue Sonic, if you're nasty.
But it further speaks to the perspective or the real or not real world, because from his perspective, he did everything good.
Cordial gentleman.
He was a cordial gentleman. Even before they had sex, he was like, oh, like Asami is right there stripping, and he's like, oh, we can go to the coffee house, we can go to the bar, we can go somewhere else.
While
I'm like, bro, are you not seeing what's in front of you? Who does that? It even felt unrealistic to me.
Yeah.
I was like, what is this?
What is this farce?
Why is he pretending?
Yeah.
Only to realize much later when we started getting flashbacks of what was actually happening. Or at least once the veil of, Asami, the untainted flower started falling apart, then we see a flashback, or not even a flashback, a version of maybe what transpired.
Yeah.
It wasn't about, I actually don't. What is this? I don't even have a dick. I don't
usually do this.
You want me to remove my shirt? I don't even know how to unbutton my shirt.
I'm so pure. I don't even watch pixelated porn.
Guy, You know, and the one thing that was really weird, and from my first watch, I didn't even remember this, was the secretary. You know?
Yes, actually,
because like, why is the secretary doing puppy lover dog eyes to him? You know, I was like, okay.
And she's like, I'm getting engaged.
Okay, why are you still standing there?
Well, I thought she was.
Do you want to invite him?
No, I thought it was more she was like asking for leave or something.
I'm always on the side of, okay, I think I just see the devious side of everything. I thought she wanted him to be like, oh, you can't get married because I love you.
Yeah, I got to stop playing up.
Yeah. I thought it was that.
I got to get off the proverbial streets.
And then as more it continued, where she started showing up and just looking at him without saying anything really, and just, I was like,
that actually adds an extra layer, because it all felt very banal when we watched it before the, sort of shift or the fork in the road, as we say. But when we look, because the way she was acting was like she was trying to get to him, but then we found out that they had already fucked, right?
Yep.
So that just turns him into a dirtbag.
Yeah.
So and can I also say, I really don't, and OT, I hope you're proud of me. I do have a theme after all of these questions called the Master Roshi Index. And I would like to incorporate that into all of our review episodes, which we can talk about later about, the perverted nature of the premise of this film. However, what I want to talk about Aoyama in particular, I didn't care for the pretension because it was very disingenuous. Like you said, oh, we can go to having some cheesecake. Bruh, she's trying to bake the cheesecake right in front of you. Trying to drip that strawberry man moon sauce all over you, mate. Mm-hmm. Right? And even during the audition scene, he's like, oh, I feel like I'm a criminal, but bring out the bitches.
Like he was the perfect gentleman in everything.
Like too perfect.
Too perfect.
Yeah.
And when that started fading for me was at that moment where he was just sitting there saying how they could go to the coffee house or the bar or walk in the park. I was like, this doesn't make sense. Yeah. What is this? Mm-hmm. For an old man, not even that, for a man who, for me at least, thought hadn't had sex for 7 years.
Yeah.
Because...
Yeah, we're doing the timeline.
Right?
Yeah, we're doing the timeline.
7 years. Wife died, 7 years, he's not been with anyone, and I just assumed he's been blue balling. That's why he was so infatuated and kept all this simping energy.
Because he was moving, he was moving.
Like he was like, wild. Oh man. I thought this is why they should show in schools, man. Masturbation is key.
Yeah.
Post-nut clarity is a thing.
Oh, absolutely. Post-bean clarity is also a thing too.
This guy was so fucking infatuated. He didn't even care what Asami said.
Yeah.
He read some random. He read the CV. I was like, oh my god. He formed ideas.
Yeah.
He had a vision board planned out.
Yeah.
It's
absolutely.
Wild.
Absolutely. And but that's what I don't like, because as much as you would be repulsed by Yoshikawa, at least he presents himself in the perverted nature that he is.
Yeah. And he had the sense of saying something isn't right here.
Yeah. But that's what I don't like about Aoyama, because even when, they were talking, I actually can't remember now. It might have been Aoyama. Remember how they were having like drinks at the bar and there were these young girls that were just having fun and giggle-gaggling out loud in Publix. I'm pretty sure it was one of them, and it might have even been Aoyama, because he talked later about Shigehiko wanting him to get married, right? But there was a comment being made about not necessarily them being loose, but how annoying they are and that sort of thing. And I turned to you and I was like, if one of them offered to suck your dick, you're not going to say no.
Yeah, it was Yoshikawa. He was like, oh, women now, girls now, ew.
Yeah.
We're the all obedient, ooh, I'll do everything.
I just didn't like it because Aoyama was like, oh, I would like a mature woman. Then what the fuck happened? He had Asami eyes for the rest of the... You know what I mean?
Yeah, I hear you. Like
if that's what if you're attracted to younger women, or you want to try something different after your beloved Ryoko died, then that's cool, bro.
And then bro said he wanted a mature woman, only for all the CVs that he looked at
Yeah.
Young. Like, what was it? What is this mature woman you're looking for?
Yeah.
Crazy.
But can I just say, there was also a moment in the audition scene where they had, because obviously with these auditions, you would have, models and actresses and that sort of thing. And then they had a lady that looked really nice. I think you would describe her as like an average sort of woman. And I just hated it. And I was like, she's too good for you guys. Fuck off.
Yeah, you could tell it was done in for those sort of malicious sort of cheap laughs and shit. Something that wouldn't even run today.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, you had thousands of applications. You should list it out.
Yeah.
Give her the fucking audacity to interview. Ask her a fucking question.
Of course.
Don't just show her and then pan away.
That's mean.
I'm like, what is this?
Yeah.
Be better.
Well, seems like we're getting pro-feminist OT in 2023.
I've been doing the work.
We know. You keep telling us you've been doing the work. We get it. Well, let's move into stylistic choices. Shout outs to Rob, the best O from Smoke and Mirrors. He's going to kick off with unflinching graphic nature of violence.
It was definitely unflinching in this.
Yeah. And it was graphic in nature.
It was graphic. I think there's something about someone being decapitated, using a string as an instrument.
At the piano.
The motion, the tension. I'm like, whoa.
Yeah.
And her smile, Asami.
Yeah.
Like the casting choice of that was perfect, was superb.
Apparently everyone in the cast had worked with Miike before, except for Eiji Shina, who plays Asami.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It might have even been one of her first roles.
Because she has this face and you see...
But Yoshikawa said it as well.
Yeah, you see innocence, but there's a deviousness in there.
Makes me want to run. I think that's what he said.
Yeah, I'm like, I'd be running now. I'd be running as well. And that what kept me gasping the first time I watched it because of how uncomfortable it was.
Yeah.
There's one thing seeing someone swing a machete and whoop, done.
Yeah. Move
Another
on to
thing,
the next one.
just, and they don't really show you the goriness of when it's happening.
Yeah.
It's the scene and the shot focused on Asami doing it.
Oh, yes.
Just running that string up and down, up and down. I'm like, whoa.
Yeah.
This is making me uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Because you can just picture how gruesome and how painful that is.
Who needs to go to confession? You just need Asami to come over.
Yeah.
Lay down the top.
Were those acupuncture needles?
I don't know. But then what's the difference then?
Put them in and then she like rides up on them.
Yeah.
I'm like, whoa, what is this?
Yeah.
It was like, I think I'm just used to the OG violence. Not this intricate shit.
Yeah, like things that are like you sit all day thinking about.
Yeah, I'm like, oh man, stab someone, fine. Back in the good old days, we just get a stabbing.
Just punch him right in the face. Because then it's done.
Yeah, like, and that's why it was like weird. Because the first time I watched it, I remember thinking, what has he done to deserve this? Because it felt so wild.
Yeah.
It felt so wild that because yes, you could say you can put it in a box and be like, she's a psycho. And you can have that mentality that she's just doing it because, hey, why not? She likes killing people.
Yeah.
But then rewatching it, you're like, okay, there's definitely more here. She's been through trauma. He's not really a good person based on how he treated her, and we get to see the sort of real, not real reflections of what he thinks or what he perceives to be the truth.
Yeah. And
I'm like, okay, in as much as this looks super violent and gory, and I wouldn't wish it on anyone, but fuck, you cannot complain.
I just like... Everything was so unfucking comfortable in watching, especially when, but you're right. I would say like the beacon for the unflinching graphic nature of the violence was Asami's expression.
100%. It was
and that's saying something, especially when you have a rolling around big sack in the bedroom. Like the fact that Asami's the scariest thing.
Yeah, the tongues, the the wagging tongues, the ears, the fingers, all that is mundane compared to her enjoyment in doing that at the moment. It was very uncomfortable.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's continue in the uncomfortable. This is coming from the lovely Ben. The interaction between sex and violence. Thoughts?
Yeah, like there's a lot of things that you can derive from sort of the fragmented views of what we saw Asami as a kid went through. We know that she was abused.
Yeah.
To what extent, that's left to our imagination, but we could pretty much put two and two together.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things, she'd get Asami to perform, do the dance, and then punish her for whatever reason. And it felt that that's one of the things I was like, closed my eyes the first time I saw this movie. I was like, what the fuck are they trying to show us here?
Yeah.
There was insinuation, and those like close shots of the teacher trying to ban Asami, or banning Asami really, and we got an inclination that it went further than that.
Yeah.
And that's one of the correlations of what Asami is trying to fight against, because we know she's super traumatized.
Yeah.
There is a correlation between violence and sex, if you want to call it that.
Well, that's just it. I think there's definitely a distinction between sex and assault. And if we're talking about sex, there was only really one inkling of it, and that was with Oyama and Asami. But even then, it was just them like twirling in the sheets, and that was it.
Yeah, I was like, what position is this?
Yeah, absolutely. So I wouldn't necessarily say it was met in this. I would say the violence is derived, like you said, from the trauma and the assault that Asami experienced as a kid. But it'll be interesting to see, especially shout outs to Ben. He did recommend a film that we searched high and low for. So we're very excited. And I'm assuming that theme will come into play in one of the films coming up.
Mm-hmm.
The next theme that we have is kind of the mirror and more addressing of this from Rob. Brutal justification to right the wrongs.
I think I also covered this a bit when I said that in as much as we got to see the perception of Oyama on how he was the perfect gentleman.
Yeah. Not Wycliffe, though.
We got to see the other side. And I think seeing Asami and understanding, Asami even explaining, telling Oyama that, I was abused as a kid. I had to go through all this. And he pretty much didn't even give a shit. She
talked about her abuse. She talked about her trauma. No one could verify where she was from. No one even knew. He definitely didn't know where she lived. All of these flags, bruv. Yeah. All of these red flags.
There's a lot of red flags. And
so that's on him. That's not on Asami.
Exactly. And to the point, I was like, what did this guy, the first time I was like, what was this guy did to deserve this?
Yeah.
But rewatching it now, I'm like, okay, I understand where this, why all the roads led to that moment.
Yeah.
Whether or not it's justifiable, it is to Asami.
Yeah.
That's her coping mechanism.
Oh, absolutely.
Treat all these dirtbags in the same way. They don't deserve. They're animals and pets and whatever.
Yeah.
And good for her.
Yeah, absolutely.
More power.
I agree. Full balls to the wall, all about it.
Mm-hmm.
I absolutely agree. That's essentially the crux of it. And you're right, because when we were rewatching this film, until we got into like the fork in the road, I was like, how do we get from here? Because obviously we knew that we were going all the way wild, right? I was like, how do we get from here to there? Like, I didn't understand. There was a bit of a disconnect because, again, a lot of the dates were like very amicable, right? And very to-do. Yeah. And then it wasn't until we saw perhaps a fracturing, perhaps more of what's closer to reality. I'm like, yeah, fuck this guy.
Yeah.
And you're right. It's absolutely, a brutal justification. I think Rob said it in the best way. And I was all for it.
Mm-hmm.
And you're right. It's not just through Oyama. We see it through the other men as well that abused her in her life.
Yeah. And what they got for that.
Mm-hmm. Let's move on. We have from Ben, unchecked desires / passions. I would go with, and as IMDb would credit, old man in wheelchair. But the abuse continued to happen. Even I think he was the stepfather because they talked about Asami talked about the stepfather being in a wheelchair, and how she would lock herself away. But then you also had the other man as well. So in that sense, disgusting pedo behavior, I guess, could be classified as unchecked passions. And then hopefully Asami going around with her brutal justifications of righting wrongs, hopefully she goes unchecked and she can continue to do that.
Yep, 100% agree.
Let's move on into casting / characters. This is from Ben. Women in dominant positions. And before you even comment, I do want to read something that I thought was quite interesting, again, from Don Cheadle's IMDb internet algorithm. Apparently, and I would say it's a lot of Western sort of interpretations, but apparently there are people and audiences that believe Audition is a feminist film.
A feminist film.
Even though Murakami, who's the novelist, as well as Tengen, who's the screenwriter, as well as Miike, who's the director, have denied any sort of overt sort of feminist themes, especially if you watch the film and the way women are treated. A lot of the stories are spawned off of the men. So obviously I don't agree with this statement, but I just want to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think they're just trying to twist this because to me it was very clear it was from a man's perspective. Literally. On what they deemed was appropriate and how they
attractive, desirable, so untainted.
I think they're just trying to claim it, but it's definitely, I didn't see it at all.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
I think this also, if we go back to Ben's woman in dominant positions, it could also be drawn into our Miyazaki. We had a theme about kids / females as the lead role in Miyazaki films. So Asami's not necessarily the protagonist, but she definitely gets everyone else gets their comeuppance.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
I don't know what it looks like. I'm particularly excited for Visitor Q to see what women are in dominant positions there.
From the descriptions, pretty sure we'll get a few.
We kind of talked about it already, but I do kind of want to coin it and keep it in the For Your Reference metaverse. The Master Roshi Index, is there anything else you want to say in regards to that?
No, just get Pavs galore in this. I think it also ties into them trying to turn this into a feminist movie because of just how stark it is.
I would like to know
from the Pav Index perspective.
I would like to know who is claiming this as a feminist film, because in what world?
Yeah, I don't know.
In the audition scene, we've kind of mentioned the audition scene, but I kind of wanted to spend a little bit of time. There were some questions that were being asked, and they were very, I would say, for the time, especially in a film industry like Japan, for example, in the 90s, to very abruptly and very directly ask, would you work in the sex industry? Would you do sex scenes? You know, it wasn't asked, but it was shown that a woman took her bra off as well. There was a woman that came in her bikini. What were your thoughts on that?
It was gross. And it just pointed more to the Master Roshi Index. It showed just how perverse these men were. They abused their power.
And the industry, the entertainment industry globally.
They knew. Even the girl who was saying how she had a friend who was in the porn industry, and Yoshikawa was like, oh, I have another role for you. Get your details from somewhere.
But you laughed. You laughed very, very rambunctiously. You laughed.
No, but it just shows you. It builds on the index, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely.
Mm.
You build on my index, OT.
Nice.
Before we finish off, there are a couple of little IMDb facts that I just want to bring up. We've talked about Quentin Jerome Tarantino and Friends and Lovers. Feel free to go and check it out if you haven't checked out our run. But Quentin Jerome Tarantino talks about Audition being a true masterpiece if there ever was one.
Okay.
Talking about his favorite films between 1992 and 2009.
It would have just been a better masterpiece if there was an N word in there. Eh?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Of course.
With the hard R. Audition R. And also, I thought this kind of tickled me, you know, if we talk about Miike saying he doesn't like bloody horror. Rob Zombie, known to the podcast in our Halloween run. Mm-hmm. Apparently, Rob Zombie admitted he found this movie to be the most creepy and unsettling horror of any horror movie he's ever watched.
That says a lot.
When you creep out Rob Zombie, you know you're onto something.
Yep. That's some standards.
Right?
Yep.
It's the Miike rating, if you're nasty. Ooh. Thank you, friends and lovers, for joining us not only another week in the For Your Reference household, but to kick off our 2023 Reference Degustation.
Woohoo!
Unlike our other review episodes, we will recommend the films as a part of this degustation course offerings, Audition, Visitor Q, Itchy the Killer, as well as Mystery Film to Be Named.
Ooh. Keeping it spicy.
You know I keep it muy caliente.
I see you're trying to point that Master Roshi index.
If you would like to contribute to the Master Roshi Index on Twitter and Instagram, we're at ForYourRefPod.
Write us an email at hello@forpodcast.com.
We're also on... Give it a go, OT.
I'm not sure as a feminist I'm allowed to do that.
Podcast, if you'd like to leave a rating and review. We'll see you guys in the next course.
See ya.
Bye.